Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is review number 788 with a review of The Monkey. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week on the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a theater near you. This week, it's been a little bit since we've seen a few things, but we're going to do a review of The Monkey. We are not going to have a review of Captain America: Brave New World, but we figured, for some reason, you might want to know some brief thoughts of ours on that film.
Isn't it odd, by the way, even just to interject now, that we're talking about the latest MCU film that is meant to be like building into the MCU canon of what is going to happen in the future, and we care so little about it that we are wondering if it's worth reviewing it even in passing before another movie. It just feels very odd. Like 10 years ago, I never would have believed that this would be where we are with MCU saturation. But yeah, I feel like we're here, and it seems like not even much of a thing to talk about.
It is kind of sad, but also maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. Well, let's talk about it, though. Captain America: Brave New World. You kind of are getting at it right now, but what were you feeling sitting down to watch that film?
I mean, I had already heard iffy things about the movie, so I was sitting down, not with much excitement, but I was looking forward to seeing what Harrison Ford would do as Red Hulk, and hopefully having, it's been a while since we saw a Marvel movie, just like a familiar superheroes doing a beat 'em up type thing, and so I was vaguely looking forward to that. But I don't know, it had lost its luster. Like, I no longer was really hoping that I would learn anything big about the Marvel Universe, because the universe feels so big, it's tiny again. Like, it no longer feels like a thing to follow. How about you? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, we know that the last few Marvel films haven't been the greatest. Mm-hmm. In general, people seem to be kind of settling on things. You haven't really been getting into the TV shows. I was keeping up with all of the TV shows for a long time. And then there was like a few in a row that I just, for whatever reason, didn't grab onto. Like, before I hit play on the first episode, I had already heard bad things, and I was like, I don't really need to start this. And when the first few trailers or the first teaser and stuff came out for Captain America: Brave New World, that trailer, everything about it screamed like many, many years ago television superhero show. It felt like a cheesy CW kind of thing. Like, it was just like, we're doing stuff in government and Red Hulk. And like, it just felt like a thing where nothing about it looked good. Like, it looked almost like, sometimes we say like this was going to be a movie and then they converted it to a TV show because they didn't think it was going to do well, and they extended it. And you have like a little movie story that's in like 6 episodes, and it didn't need to be that. This felt like they went, oh my God, no one's going to watch it on Disney Plus. Can we cut it down to being a movie and just put it out, and at least we'll make a tiny bit of money? And like, watching those trailers, I was like, this is going to be so bad. And I was mostly just watching it because I was curious. I had zero hopes for it, and I was actively worried what I was sitting down to watch. So that may or may not have put me in a good place to try to watch this movie. But yeah, overall. Now,
have you heard much about the production of this movie? Like, it was basically tons and tons of things were reshot, and as far as I know, an entire enemy character was added after the fact because they felt like they wanted a plot that was more, I don't even know what. Like, they refocused the movie around Harrison Ford to a pretty large degree, and they did a ton of stuff later that just kind of like...
Wait, it was refocused to Harrison Ford?
Yeah, okay. It was. Apparently, it used to be more about Anthony Mackie, aka the lead character of the movie, and some of what he was doing, and there was a bit more bite to it, maybe, about him and the uncertainty of him serving America and what that means, which my understanding is Falcon and the Winter Soldier also was about that. I never watched that show. Maybe, did you watch that before you gave up on watching Marvel shows?
Yeah. So Falcon and the Winter Soldier was basically like, I don't want the shield. I don't want the shield. I don't want the shield. It was like that meme about, what was the boxing...
Fans of The Wire?
No. The meme with the boxing movie with Clint Eastwood, boxing movie.
$1 Million
Baby. It's like the meme of that, which is like coach me, okay, dead. Spoilers for $1 Million Baby. It was basically that meme, which is like, I don't want the shield, I don't want the shield, I don't want the shield. All right, fuck it, I'll take the shield. That's kind of what that entire show is. Has some interesting ideas, but it also didn't feel like it was one cohesive thought, right? There's a lot happening there. You do get to see another Captain America beat the shit out of a civilian with a shield, which was pretty gnarly. But besides that, there wasn't a lot going on with that. And I think that, it doesn't surprise me that this got changed into something, but does that mean like the original villain was just supposed to be the Breaking Bad, the Pollos Hermanos guy?
No, other way around. Okay. He was added in post. And the
He
true villain of this movie was always there, but they felt like they needed an intermediary villain for some reason.
I see.
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
Okay, because I was like, okay, that would be really weird if that was the case. But anyways, what did you think of this film, Stephen?
I was not a fan of this movie. I didn't hate it. Some of the action sequences were competently made, and I do, for the most part, like Harrison Ford, even though they really, really, really make you wait for the Red Hulk, which is funny because they show it in the trailer, so it isn't like a spoiler that it's going to happen. Yeah. But man, they leave you wanting for a long time.
Let me ask you something real fast, Stephen, before you go on. In a world in which you were stoked for this, all the Marvel films up until now were complete hits. You're like, fuck yeah, new Captain America, love Anthony Mackie in wingsuits. Let's fucking go. And none of the advertising had mentioned Red Hulk. And you were watching this Thursday night, early Wednesday screening, whatever. And you were sitting down and he was starting to get angry. And you're like,
that. But my answer is that would have been great because it would rescue me from a movie I was very bored by up until that point. It would have left me on a high note where I feel like this movie is a pretty jumbled mess for most of the runtime. The only reason this movie exists in the current state, as far as I can tell, is to showcase Red Hulk. Yeah. And without that, I feel like you would lose any semblance of a story that is interesting to follow. Yeah. I would have loved it to be a surprise, but I think it would have been an actively bad movie until I was surprised at the very, very end. And then I would leave being like, oh, maybe the next movie will be better.
I feel like this film is not just trying to show you Red Hulk and then hope you're excited for the next thing. I think it's trying to do kind of what Deadpool and Wolverine did, where it's like, what if we just invent a new glue that can pull together a bunch of things from existence and tie them all and pretend like they're actually cohesive, even though they're not. I'm not saying I like that it's doing that. I just think that they were like, how can we grasp at any straw we can and glue them all together and fuse them together using this film that is the thing that is going to hold us over till the next thing. And to me, that wasn't 100% successful. But I didn't hate this movie. It was like a thing where I was like, I was so worried going in that when it was like half of an idea, I was like, oh, all right, that's okay. I guess this is a thing. The thing that truly weirds me out the most about it, besides the fact that my mind would have been blown seeing and realizing Red Hulk was about to happen if I didn't go in knowing it. It's kind of like the beginning of our conversation about Companion, where it's like, if I didn't know this was a Red Hulk movie, when I realized it was a Red Hulk movie, I would have lost my mind, even though I have no allegiance to the character of Red Hulk. I don't know any of the stories related to it. The thing that weirds me out is it's kind of just a rehash of Wakanda Forever. It's basically it's literally the exact same plot, right? A nation has a material we want. Yeah. We should be allowed to have that material. And it's sort of like a similar sort of situation, all over again. And it's like, in isolation, I would be like, yeah, that's enough for a story. And I kind of like what the real villain is trying to do with that plot. But for me, it just, I kind of was just kind of like, okay, there's enough here for me to hold on to it and just kind of like sit through and be like, all right, cool. When is he going to Red Hulk out? And I like the idea of what is happening there. It's just not the best execution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it feels like a bunch of better movies from the 90s, including movies Harrison Ford would have been in, like A Patriot Games, or these didn't have him, but Hunt for Red October and Crimson Tide are both movies I thought about a lot. Crimson Tide is like very similar to one key set piece in this movie in terms of like what the stakes are. And, just in general, like it evokes that, but so did like the second Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Like they're good at evoking these kind of old school thrillers, but they're worse than those thrillers.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I just didn't find that subplot very compelling, and I think we are dancing around who the big bad is, and I think it's fine to not spoil it for the few people who maybe
are we
haven't
dancing
found
around
out.
it because we couldn't for the life of us tell you what the name of the character is or what the fuck he does?
Oh, I don't know the character, but I know the actor.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is such a muddy implementation of this villain, and every time he explains what he's doing, which feels all 80 yards because they're like, the audience is too dumb, we need to tell them more about why we're doing things, I'm like, this is the dumbest plan I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, you are supposedly very smart, and everything you are doing is like the most ridiculous Rube Goldberg device to get to one outcome in the end.
I don't think you understand, Steven. He's so smart that he knows his plan will work. What are you not getting about that?
Yeah, he's the nihilist. I
Though-
just found like there's a time when he wanders into a location that should be heavily armed and just like murders someone in the most boring way possible and walks away, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Who are you? And then his conclusion also is just like, oh, look, it was my plan all along. And you're just like, what? And anyway, I know I'm talking around it, but I just think there's so much about this movie that is very dumb. It's like competently made. It was okay. I just find it, I mean, my hot take is I think Captain America movies are almost always the worst Marvel movies. I know there are people who really love them, and I think like for some reason Captain America is just such an empty vessel of a character that all they can do when there's a Captain America movie is make it about everyone else instead of about Captain America.
Yeah.
But it feels just even more glaring this time in a way that I was just disappointed is the wrong word. I was just irritated that I had to watch it.
It does make sense though, Steven, because you should ask not what Captain America can do for you.
Ask what all side characters can do to bolster Captain America.
All right. That's probably enough talking about Captain America.
Yeah. One final note is Robert Daniels did a great takedown of this movie and how kind of politically cowardly it is. So I recommend you check that out. He says it much better than I could. I just thought it was a boring ass movie. But I also agree with the deeper criticisms of it. I can't even care about this movie enough to dig into them.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, Steven, you can care enough to dig into the movie we actually came here to talk about. That is The Monkey. We are going to play the trailer for The Monkey and then come back and give you a review.
Oh, that's odd. I don't remember locking this.
You wouldn't happen to remember if my aunt had a wind-up toy monkey at the yard sale?
Oh, not a cherished childhood memory now, was it?
No! The coroner said it was an accident, but it was no accident. It was a monkey. When I was a kid, my twin brother and I found something that loved to kill. I did everything I could to make it go the fuck away. But it had other plans. Hello, brother. Bill. The monkey that likes killing our family. It's back. It must be vanquished.
Why don't you vanquish it, huh, Bill?
Wait! we have been chosen to witness its power over life and death in its most devious ways.
It's a toy monkey?
It's evil. It's basically the devil.
Everybody dies. And that's life.
Oh, fuck.
All right, so that was the trailer for The Monkey. It is a film based on a novel by Stephen King, and it is the story of two twin brothers who, when they were younger, had a wind-up toy monkey who, if you wound that little key on its back, people would end up dead. And now, as they are adults, the monkey seems to have returned. Stephen Miller, what did you think of The Monkey?
First of all, I need to issue a correction, which is that this is based on a short story by Stephen King. And the reason that correction is important is I feel like this is only a short story in terms of how many ideas it had. And I don't really mean that as a criticism. Like, my Letterboxd review of this movie was, this is one of the dumbest things I've seen in a long time, and I mostly mean that as a compliment. Now, I should say, first, I have not read Stephen King. There are people on the internet who I generally admire their opinions, who love Stephen King and say this, like, perfectly captures how it feels to read him. And, like, there are a lot of people saying this feels like a very faithful adaptation of him as an author. That's all great. Totally get that. What I saw is the most ridiculously goofy, like, the most openly comedic Stephen King adaptation I think I've ever seen. In a way, and I know this reference will not mean anything to most of the population because it hasn't come out yet, but The Life of Chuck felt like a very similar comparison point for me while I watched this. Partly the over-reliance on narrators. I'm realizing people just love Stephen King's writing, so they just bring a narrator in there so they can, like, put every sentence that he wrote in the movie in some way. It also reminds me of, like, Stand By Me or the first part of It, right? There's lots of movies about being a kid who is exposed to something terrible, and what does that change in you when you learn about the darkness in the world at too young an age, and what kind of adult you grow up to be. Like, this totally fits in that line. The difference is this movie doesn't take itself seriously for a single second ever at all. Yeah. From the cold open basically to every death that happens, even though like 5 are in the trailer, there are many you have not seen yet. This is a very deadly movie.
In the trailer, they cut as the death is happening, so you don't have the appreciation for how ridiculous it is. Like, in the trailer, a woman dives into water that you know is electrified. If I asked you for $1 million to imagine what you thought happened next, you would not have $1 million.
I would not do it. Let's just say the prop department had a lot of fun working with ground beef in this movie. It is very, very, very silly, and it does not ever take itself seriously. The cast is having a lot of fun. Theo James is, I would say, I love him in one of the 2 roles he plays in this movie. I won't tell you which until spoilers. Tatiana Maslany as the mom. I really like the person who plays adult Hal's son, Colin O'Brien. I feel like he has a really good rapport with his dad as kind of like almost a straight man who is watching the ridiculousness around him and is trying to figure out like what the fuck is going on. Yeah, there were things to like about it. Elijah Wood, I think, is very hilarious in the 1 or 2 scenes that he shows up in.
The funny thing is, I saw Elijah Wood on the back of the book that the lead was reading, and I just thought that was the gag.
Right.
I did not.
You weren't ready for it.
I was not ready. And when it happened, I was like, oh my God, this is fucking brilliant.
Yeah. It was great. Like I laughed a lot in this movie. I will just say the audience was laughing a lot harder than I was. Like, I was amused by this movie, but people adored this movie. And it hit like a turning point for me maybe halfway through when I felt like I was not enjoying the movie nearly as much as the movie was enjoying itself. And I started to feel kind of left behind by some of the zaniness. And I think it all kind of fizzles into nothing by the third act in a way that I didn't find totally satisfying. But like, if I compare it to other cheesy horror comedies, like let's say Renfield, I think this is way better than a Renfield. Like, this is a coherent movie that is dark and very funny and made me laugh a good amount. I just left being a little confused as to what tone they were going for in the end, or what, if anything, they wanted to leave the audience with. And I think it, even at a tight like 90 minutes, I feel like it outstayed its welcome for me. So dumb, silly, had a good time with it. Feels like a short that was bloated into a feature, and I don't know that it had a feature amount of things to do. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why this movie is wonderful, why it is your number one of the year.
I mean, the year's been short, Steven, but I genuinely think this film is great.
Yep. 2 for 2 on Stephen King's short story adaptation that you like more than me.
Maybe I'm just a sucker for that. And I think that it really comes down to the tone of this film. I think if you make a film that is on the edge of what people will accept, just push it over that edge and you'll be okay. This, the thing I want to compare this to, which is maybe just for us, but maybe for some of our listeners, but Memoir of a Snail, right? One of the things I said in a review of that film was that it's the type of story that you wouldn't accept if it was live action. You need it to be this animated sort of story so that you can accept it as this is all this stuff could happen in this world because it's an animated film, right?
Right. Oh, I thought you meant a story where someone gets adopted by relatives who are swingers.
I mean, there's a lot of things that work.
Yep.
work here, Steven. But yeah. So basically, it's a thing where it's like, man, we can't ride the line. We just have to take this and just push it so far over the edge that people will just laugh at the audacity of us filming it and doing it this way. Yeah. There was a gag with one of the deaths that involves being in a sleeping bag when you die. And it's like, you can't, even if you don't think it's funny, you laugh uncomfortably because you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, because they don't cut. It's exactly what you were saying. They go way over the line on purpose.
Yeah, and also, like, the voiceover, it sounds like it thinks it's so fucking badass, and it kind of is. You know what I mean? Like, even when it's just the simple voiceover, it's like, when I was a kid, we had a fucking monkey. For whatever reason, this film oozes this sort of thing where you're on its page just because you're like, what am I watching? This is so, like, this film, just from the first death is sort of like, it's kind of like, I know you're going to think it's too Rube Goldberg-y. It's going to feel like Final Destination. Let's add a little flair to it. And then when that flair happens, I mean, not to even mention the cameo of the first person you see walk in, you're just like,
sets the tone immediately for what movie you're watching.
You're like, I'm in good hands here. This is going to be a fucking ride. And, you know, I saw it in the big theater at Alamo. I saw it at the early screening, though, so there was like 10 people in the theater, and people in the theater were fucking eating this movie up, which is ironic because it could be hard to eat while watching this movie. But I just thought it was fun. I genuinely liked the story. I know, like, you know, you're saying that, like, there isn't a lot there and it feels like a short story, but there is enough. It kind of needs you to really grab onto the two brothers, where their life is gone and what they're doing. But I think it's really interesting to see kind of what the possession of the monkey did to those children and how they've thought about it their whole lives until their adulthood. And I think that, like honestly, the only thing that didn't fully work for me is like the weird skateboard.
Like the character of Ricky.
Yeah, the big hair guy from
how badly did they want to cast Caleb Landry Jones in that role? Like, how many times did he say no before they finally gave up and gave it to someone else?
It just was like that entire family I didn't care for. But everything else about this film, I was like, all right, this was fun. Like I wanted to see a weird, scary movie with a monkey, and what I got was like, you are not prepared, and you're welcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say one thing that was funny, and I will just tell this to you and not elaborate more. While I was watching this movie, my wife was celebrating her birthday at Benihana. Do with that what you will.
Awesome.
Yeah, this movie, I will give it. What becomes very fun about this movie, in a kind of Final Destination way, is once you know what it is doing, and everyone who's seen the trailer knows what it is doing, the game becomes predicting how the fuck are they going to kill the next person.
Yeah.
And it becomes pretty fun when they just enter a scene to be like, oh God, what are they going to do now? But here, it isn't the execution of the death so much as the aftermath of the death that I think becomes the joke in everything. Like the really, really grisly follow through that they have, the total commitment to the bit.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that a lot.
And I think honestly, and we can or cannot, like we either can or can, I don't know what the sentence I'm trying to say is, you can choose whether we do a spoiler section or not.
Sure.
But I will say that like the ending, as tonally correct as it was, like if it fit with where those characters had been, and it was kind of like, yeah, just pile on more. But I was kind of like, who's turning the key now? You know what I mean? Like it was kind of like a thing where like I feel I was a little bit kind of like, you were doing this insane thing, but also sticking to all the rules that you had created. And at the end, I feel like I don't understand why the rules have changed. And I'm not going to think about it too much, but it's just one of those things where I was like, okay, that was funny, but also we know they're not turning the key at this moment. So why are these people continuing to die?
I would like to have a small spoiler section just to go into that. Because I would say when I criticize the end of this movie, I'm really criticizing the last like 25 minutes. I think the final shot, or I don't know, the final thought of the movie is great. Like tonally, I love the way this movie ends. It is really everything that happens before they get to that point that I'm okay that they go that hard, that it just feels like it stopped being a comedic horror movie and became like a Reno 911 level slapsticky movie. Like it became something that didn't even feel like horror comedy anymore, in a way that just, we can talk about it in spoilers, I guess, and maybe you'll understand where I'm coming from. Okay. I do think a missed opportunity of this movie is it is clearly about a father and son, and the reasons the father has had to stay separated from the son and like not being understood in the cycle and, you know, all that stuff. I'm saying about as if this movie were taking itself seriously, which it clearly isn't. I feel like the movie does a great job of showing me why the two are separated and how the son feels about that. And then it just yada yadas over any attempt to connect them or do anything with their relationship. It's like they didn't want to write a story that wasn't in the short, so they just forgot to make an arc. It feels like a missed opportunity, because you could so easily have everything the movie is doing and have it show some kind of growing understanding between father and son that culminates in the image that you get. And instead, it's like 95% not understanding each other and then cut to the final image. That was at least how I felt about it.
So counterpoint. If your entire ethos is, why has my dad abandoned me? Mm-hmm. And then you learn real fast why, it's kind of like, oh, he's been dealing with this shit. You know what I mean? I feel like you got your answer, right? Because most of the time you get your answer and it's not worth it, right? You know, it's just, he's a deadbeat dad. But when it turns out literally his lineage is possessed by the the possession of this funky monkey.
But what makes Theo believe that his proximity to the kid changes the dynamic? Is there anything in the canon of the monkey, in the things we've seen happen, that makes it seem like people are safe as long as he isn't near them or talking to them?
It seems like there is a proximity thing, which we can talk about in the spoilers, but also he got rid of it, but he's expecting it can show up at any time.
Right.
And he doesn't want to be with somebody else when it shows up, right?
He could still FaceTime, though.
The monkey? Oh, you mean? I think he literally doesn't want his son to have a relationship with him because he doesn't want his son to have it passed to him. And if he has a complete disconnect, but still, why would you have the 1 day a year thing? That doesn't make sense either.
Either the monkey knows or the monkey doesn't know. I feel like it. And if the thing is like you have to hide it from the monkey and the monkey is all knowing, then you have to just disavow your child completely. And that's another. We can just talk about it in spoilers, I guess. I don't understand when he had the kid, like in what context, in what circumstance he had it, because he seems like he's always been alone, but it feels like there was a separation here. It wasn't like a one night thing, you know?
When a man and a woman love each other very much.
I'm not following.
Yeah, I mean, clearly. I mean, not clearly. I don't know how the situation happened, but I believe that the mother understands why he is going away.
Okay.
But the idea that, like, the way she makes up for her abandoned husband / father of her child is to choose somebody who's written books on being the perfect father.
I love that gag. It's sort of reminiscent of Sex Education to me, but we don't have to get into that.
Cool.
Yeah. A show that I did not understand because I don't know where babies come from, apparently. I think it's when you wind two people up who love each other, they smash cymbals together.
Yeah, that sounds about correct.
Something there.
There's something there. And then, just like life, a miracle happens.
Yes. It's beautiful.
All right, Stephen Miller. Before we do spoilers, we must give folks a pre-spoiler verdict. So let's do that now. Stephen Miller, if you're going to give us a must-see, recommend with a caveat, wait for rental pass with a caveat, or a must-avoid, what would you give it?
I'm going to give this the highest spoiler warning review I've ever given a movie I put 3 stars for on Letterboxd and say recommend with a caveat. I think this movie is pretty damn dumb. I don't think it tonally all coheres, at least for me. The joke started to feel like beating a dead horse in a self-aware way, but not in like a way where I was laughing at the self-awareness. Like something didn't work for me, but when it works, I laughed a lot, and it was just very audacious and silly. So I am glad this movie exists, even if I think the comedy landed better on almost everyone else in the audience than it did with me. And that's fine. That means you, dear listener, will probably also have a great time. Caveat, I think the storyline is pretty thin. I don't think the tone is entirely consistent. And there are things we can talk about in spoilers that I think it could have done better in terms of the core relationship that the movie is unpacking. So fun time, not a great time, but definitely a good time.
Yeah, I am going to bump it up from what I think the quality probably is and just go with my heart, my wind-up monkey heart, and give this a must-see. I had a surprising amount of fun with this. I was mostly just kind of excited to watch a movie about like a creepy little monkey. And what I got was a wild ride that I thoroughly enjoyed. And speaking of, Stephen, before spoilers, do you think the monkey's creepy? If you went home and there was that monkey just sitting in the darkness, how much shit would you lose?
Are the eyes glowing ever so slightly, or is it really just the monkey toy that I'm seeing?
It's specifically the looking down at an angle and then turned cocked up at you with one arm up. And that weird smile.
Yeah, that would creep me out. But and I didn't even bother saying this as I normally do with horror movies because it was so obviously not scary. No part of this movie for a second creeped me out in any way. And I would not trust a person who got scared from this movie. Like, something's wrong with them.
But again, that monkey was in your apartment.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't want that monkey in my apartment, for sure. Though, to be fair, anything dark, if it's dark in my apartment and I don't recognize the silhouette, it will freak me out. It can be like a fruit that was on the table that I didn't know was going to be there. It can be a stuffed animal. It can be
monkeys,
Joanna.
Dummies, Raggedy Ann style dolls.
Yeah, my little Annabelle doll. That would creep me out if I didn't know about it. The old nun who lives
the
in
weird
my
dolls that have
apartment.
their head and their hand like pointed away, like they're in timeout in the corner. I don't know what's up with those things, but you know the ones I'm talking about.
Yeah. The creature with eyes on its palms that lives in my living room. Like, if I didn't know him intimately well, he would creep me out.
Is that like a Pan's Labyrinth reference?
Yeah. The Babadook.
Yeah.
Like, now I'm familiar with him, but you know, in certain lighting, he would definitely creep me out too.
Well, Stephen, it's almost time for spoilers. We have to say goodbye to folks who have not seen this film yet. So, if people want to find you throughout the week, where can they do that?
People can find me at Threads or Blue Sky at sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or ChristopherIRL and a number of social platforms. You can find the podcast over at thespoilerwarning.com where you can get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so in Overcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at twitter.com/spoilerwarning, facebook.com/thespoilerwarning, or instagram.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com or use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from a track selected from artlist.io, so hopefully you're enjoying that. That music is playing now. That music is going to fade up. And after the music's done fading up, it's going to fade down. The hand's going to fall, strike the drum, and the non-spoiler part of the episode will be dead.
You nailed it. That's how you always say it.
All right, see you in a moment. We are back. That was a perfect segue. And we are talking full-blown spoilers. This is spoiler territory. Let's talk about it, Stephen. So, I just needed to get my question answered.
Right.
So the idea at the end of this film that they have turned the crank on the monkey so many times, they have unleashed one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I don't know the literal meaning of that, but it's obviously a reference to the earlier quote that is Hal the name of the good twin or the bad twin? I don't remember which twin is with. It's Hal and Bill, I think.
I just, like an idiot, I just looked at IMDb and I was like, which one is it?
Yeah, it's Hal. So Hal mentions earlier that he's like, bad things are happening to me. I mean, I'm not saying I'm like literally I saw a man riding on a gray horse and his name was Death, you know, so this was kind of like a payoff for that.
Gotcha.
But this is saying, which again, I think our parents all told us this as a cautionary tale, if you crank the monkey too many times,
you're going to hell.
Exactly. The whole world is going to hell. My understanding is that Theo James too, Bill, Theo James with was it a mullet, a rat tail? I don't really remember what he was doing with his hair, but he was doing something. Yeah, maybe both. He was doing something. Maybe it was a monkey tail. But anyway, he cranked it so much. He cranked that Soldier Boy, and all hell broke loose because just no one has ever angered the monkey to the degree that he has before. And so we are really just seeing like a time delayed continuation of what the monkey set in motion. He just laid a bunch of traps all at the same time. And I guess Death happens to be there too. Though obviously the reason I like that ending metaphorically is it's like the hell of the small town that you grew up with and like the demons of your past or whatever. And they're literally like leaving the town, seeing all of these Stephen King-ly nightmares happening and just kind of bonding over the horror of it, you know, like every Stephen King movie, you can really think of it as the burden of being a writer, you know, like the visions in his head of bad things that could happen. I'm sure that's there somewhere, just like it is in everything, but I'm being facetious because I don't think this movie's really saying much of anything.
But see, I guess for me, the thing I didn't like about that aspect of things is not the writer metaphor, blah, blah stuff. But to me, what the brother was doing, the, you know, bad brother, what he was doing, the monkey should have liked until he tried to force it, right? Because the monkey does what the monkey's gonna do. You know, it's a curious little George. And other monkey references, King Kong. I don't know. But to me, it was like when he did the violence to the monkey, like the monkey was like, yes, fill me with your rage. I will kill so many people. This is awesome. But then when he was like, no, do what I want, and he was trying to force it, that's when the monkey was like, all right, I'm going to let all this shit out. Right. You know, it wasn't that he fucked around and found out. It was that he specifically crossed the line at the end, right before it killed him. But it's like, by killing him, hasn't he paid for that debt? You know, I feel like the monkey is like, by just taking out everything and kind of unleashing hell on earth, it feels a little bit like, well, why are these brothers going to, like, why do I need the other brother and his son now? Because I've killed everything, right? So it just seemed kind of strange.
I mean, I think, though, what the movie is trying to say by way of a very ridiculous, silly metaphor is that the terrible burden you learn as a kid is that bad things happen and they are not fair. They're random and there's no meaning in them and there's no lesson to get from it. So the monkey is not actually tipping the scales of justice in any way. Like, it feels like, oh, you wind it up and a bad thing will happen to someone else, and there's all these rules about why it happens and who it'll happen to and who it won't happen to, and now you angered the monkey, so it has to exact revenge. And I think the movie's saying, like, no, the world is just meaningless and terrible. Good luck, kid. This is what growing up is. And I think it just does that in a ridiculous way in the end, but I don't think it is breaking any lore, because I don't think there was ever lore that was dependable. Like, the lie is believing that there is a reason the monkey does things and like a way of doing it that will guarantee that it won't be you and that it'll only happen to your enemies. Like all of that was just you're falling into the monkey's plan. The monkey just wants chaos. It doesn't care about anything. I
mean, it's a literal monkey paw situation, but the monkey paw happens to have a drumstick in it.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the cruel irony of life. It's like a rim shot.
Right.
So many levels, Stephen. But no, I think for me, I wanted to buy into the idea that there were consistent rules. The consistency is chaos, right? But I do believe the person that turns the key wouldn't die, except for when you fuck with the system and you try to make it do exactly what you want. But I really like the idea of the one brother realizing what happened. First of all, it's great that brother was always a piece of shit and was an idiot. And so he always like tormented his brother because he realized the brother was like, he realized that he was an idiot and he had to call the other brother an idiot to like put that on him so he could like literally transfer what his life would become later. But the fact that he realized what the brother did, realized that it caused his mom's death, and the way he became obsessed with the monkey and sort of worshiped the monkey and was like, I am going to enact my revenge if I have to kill an entire town of people. That's like some true supervillain shit right there. And I really, really enjoyed that aspect as you start to realize like the fact that his brother's like, hey, can you just like go to the house and like collect all of our aunt's stuff? I can't go. Can you handle it? And you're like, that's some shady ass shit. And then like when the one death happens and you're like, oh, okay. But then when you find out that every single day that week,
yep,
more and more people were dying in horrible ways, and you're like, okay,
Hilarious.
so the brother is fucking using the monkey.
I just have to ask, and I'm not trying to break this movie in any way, but he has built a whole lair with booby traps and stuff. Can't he just go kill his brother the old-fashioned way? You know, like, does everyone have to use an app for everything now? Can't they just do it themselves? Like, how many townspeople does he have to accidentally murder because he has to twist a key to kill his brother instead of, like, pull a gun out and shoot him, you know?
Steven, this is your same complaint about the that other movie that isn't out yet, where the analyst has to become the killer, but he can't kill anybody with his hands.
Oh, yeah, you're right, 100%. Yeah, this is Rami Malek all over again. And maybe when I watch that movie, it will have explained everything.
You'll be
the
like,
idea that you simply must do a Rube Goldberg device to murder someone instead,
yeah,
no matter how evil you clearly are.
Because then your hands are clean. The monkey did it.
Right.
Yeah,
that's true. But if you crank the monkey, your hands are not clean. They're going to grow fur on them, actually. That's what I was told.
Yeah. You either go blind or you grow fur on your hands. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, Steven?
Just in general, I'm wondering how you felt about not the reveal of the evilness of his brother Bill, which we all agree is very amusing, but I would say Brother Bill is like Jaws or something, where I think he's very good when you don't see him that often, when he is the creepy voice, when he's the thing that is happening. In the last like half hour of the movie, it takes a wild turn into showing us Bill for long periods of time as he is talking and monologuing and trying to do his thing, and I found him intentionally, I'm sure, but extraordinarily goofy, and I found the character kind of tiresome. Like, the jokes didn't work on me after a little while, and I was just wondering, when is this guy gonna die? Because it's like you're watching an SNL sketch that happened after the musical guest, and it just like keeps dragging and dragging, and you're like, man, I don't want to see you in that wig anymore. The illusion is starting to shatter for me.
Or you're watching a skit that was cut from the episode but then put on YouTube, and then Steven sends it to you and ensures you that you will laugh, and if you don't laugh, you have to watch it again until you laugh.
Yep.
Want to come with, Steven?
That's a good one. That's a great one.
But yeah, for me, I think there was it was like a joke, and then the joke was over, and then he was just pathetic, right? And there was like a sadness to his patheticness, and like the joke of him not realizing that his twin brother had the same mom as him is like, it's a stupid joke, but at that point I believe his patheticness. And it's like, the problem is his performance is not keyed in with the patheticness, right? Like, if you look at like a little film called Twinless, there is like a genuine...
We are just loving to reference movies that people haven't been able to see yet.
They'll get to see it. Or if they have a TikTok, they'll see scenes from it now, still. But in that film, you know, like Dylan O'Brien's like ability to just be kind of sad dude that like you feel bad for, when he doesn't feel... I don't know. There's something about his like endearing nature in that, even though he's sort of like a violent dude, this is like that, but just more pathetic and also made into a joke. And it's like, I had enough residual leftover feel bad for the stupid guy that like I was fine with what was happening there, because he wasn't the main character that we were watching, right? If it turned out that the other Theo James was wearing glasses to pretend and he was actually their brother, I would have been like, what the fuck? That doesn't make any sense. But I was fine with like the one brother who was like, yeah, you suck and I'm going to turn the whole school against you, is actually himself like a pathetic dude with no friends who has just lived his life inside of this rundown apartment complex that he is booby trapped like Home Alone for some reason. And that just, it worked for me enough that I was able to bypass the fact that the joke was literally one note, and just like think about like, holy shit, he has been searching for a monkey for like 25 years, and then he found it, and he has turned that key every day and killed a random person in his town. I was so caught up in the fact that that was gnarly that I didn't care that he was stupid. Also, there's the fucking skateboarding kid that, to me, is way worse than this version.
Yeah, but we see less of him because bangs are covering most of his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very one note. To me, the equivalent of the ending of Batman v Superman, you know, that happens with them when he realizes they have the same mom. That was just like, that was a level of too dumb.
Why are you saying that name?
And her name is Lois, so it almost, you know, not Martha, but another character in the DC universe.
Yeah.
It's close.
It's close.
Anyway, that hit a level of dumb to me that was no longer, haha, this movie is hilarious, and more, wow, they really are scraping the bottom of the barrel in the script. Or they're kind of just making him go out with a pathetic whimper, which I get, because he is pathetic, and so that is the whole joke. It just... I wanted more of a climax, I guess, to the movie, and instead it just fizzles out, which is a choice comedically. It just isn't one that really worked on me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just that his hubris and his, like, willingness to set up all these booby traps is his eventual downfall. He's, like, literally hoisted by his own petard, and that petard is a bowling ball with his mom's name on it.
Yep.
Like, it's so deep, like how deep that bowling ball was embedded in his face.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right. Have I convinced you to love this movie yet?
Close. I have one more nitpick. This is not even a plot detail. This is a trailer versus reality nitpick. There's a moment in the trailer that everyone laughs at where the priest, who does not look like a priest, goes up on stage in a funeral situation and looks out at the crowd and goes, oh, fuck. And in the trailer, it seems like that is going to be the culmination of many deaths, right? This is a priest that is looking at how grisly all this stuff has been, and he's lost for words, and all he can say is, oh, fuck. That is the very first funeral of the movie, and that just felt... I felt a little betrayed that I didn't get the culmination of ridiculousness. I got it at the very beginning when it is just a weird character beat rather than an actual commentary on the movie.
Yeah, I guess for me, so many people had conversations that seemed out of the norm. And clearly that priest was not prepared for giving any sort of service for somebody whose head was cut off at a Benihana. Also, like, sure, that's traumatizing for the kids, but like, if you're like a Benihana sword acrobat, like, I don't know what they're called, chef, sword chef dancing guy, and you're trying to hit on this woman and you cut her head off, that's got to be pretty traumatic for you too, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Moral of the story is, Steven, that I was fine with it because it's not just the him saying fuck. It's like his attempt to still go with it and say the right things. For me, the funniest line from him is where he mentions, I don't even remember the line now, but he says something about like her head, but he's like, but not hers because it's severed from her body. Mm-hmm. It's like him trying to say something that sounds correct, but then realizing that everything can be interpreted as this woman's head got cut off. So that's insensitive.
Yep.
It worked on me.
I'll give it to you.
All right. We done?
We're done.
All right.
Crank that key.
Thank you all for listening. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.